meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife.
And how you doing, how you living, how you feeling, folks? Back for another episode of City Night Lights. Now, of course, I'm your host. My name's Zach. I'm idiot number 0. As always, I'm glad to be back on the podcast. You know, I like chopping it up, especially when I get to talk about my Mets. Especially when we're doing well, you know, it's always a good thing. Now, of course, it's going to be similar to the last Mets episode. We're just doing a weekly recap type deal. So it's going to be exciting. Expect them every week. And with that being said, let's just get right into the meat and potatoes of this thing. So we left off here last time, you know, talking about Mets were getting ready to enter the Braves series. Things looked a little ominous to start the season. Weren't really sure which direction the Mets were ready to head into. And to be honest with you, they've surprised me this last week. You know, they just swept the red-hot Pirates. Now they're not. Let's go. I'd love to see a 3-0 sweep on the Pirates. They beat the Braves in their series 2-1. And the Royals also lost their series to the Mets 2-1. Now, with that being said, we'll do this. We're going to quickly talk about the Braves series, then we'll go to the Royals series, and we'll hit the Pirates series. I know that kind of did that out of order, but it's a good thing we're only a minute 30 into the show. Now, with that being said, we'll hit the Braves series first. Now, the Braves series was a very, very exciting one to watch. That 16-4 game really felt like a staple game for us early in the season. It really felt like a nice signature win. And that, you know, I think that's something that Met fans are going to look back on later in the season and go, that was one of the games that really got us going into that right gear. Now, you know, we did, I think the first game was like 8-7. Second game was like 6-5, something like that. I don't know. All high-scoring games. We really saw the Mets hit well. I was very, very impressed with that. We saw Nimmo absolutely kill it that series. He had 2 home runs in one game, 5 RBIs in one game, and 4 hits in one game. In terms of series stats, maybe not as great. You know, throw 2 more RBIs and a hit in there for the rest of the series, but I will say Nimmo had a phenomenal game 1, really saved that game for us, really helped put us on top between him and DJ Stewart, who finally got his first hit of the season in terms of a home run. Since that Brave series, DJ Stewart has kind of turned it on a little bit. You know, maybe it might be a little too late with the hopeful rise of JD Martinez soon. Hopefully that's sooner than later, but we will see. Now, the one thing I will say is that this Brave series, it was definitely a tough fight every inning, and we really did fight every inning. We didn't lay down like we have in the past. You know, we were actually scoring runners in scoring position, which is something the Mets, at least in terms of my lifetime, have never really done consistently. So watching them in these last 3 series really be able to just hit consistently and making sure, you know, they're not leaving runners stranded all damn game. It feels really nice, and I'll be honest with you, this Mets series against the Braves, I will say it looked professional. Now, I get for a lot of people that might not be a Mets fan, you might go professional. They're professionals. Why wouldn't they look professional? Well, the Mets are they're very Metsy, and if you don't know baseball, you won't understand that. But the Mets are as Metsy as it getsy, and to be honest with you, this really did look like a very competent ball club. I was very excited to see the way they played, the way they stood up, and just kind of the way they did everything. It felt like a true, you know, professional organization that, although, you know, before the season started, they weren't necessarily ranked to be super great. They look like they're, you know, trying to make a World Series push, and I really can appreciate that. Now, we'll move on to the Royal Series. Royal Series, I definitely watched a lot less of, just in terms of, you know, hitting up some Orioles games, getting over here, getting over there, getting some school stuff done. So I did just kind of do a lot of stats watching in terms of this series. I know the first game we won like 5 or 6-1. Second game we got shellacked, and then the third game we had a nice little win. The things I kind of noticed from that was Jose Bunto. Jose Bunto had a phenomenal outing. 9 Ks over 6 innings, 0 ERA. I believe he had 1 or 2 walks in that. You know, it's just awesome to see the young guy really getting up and going, especially when there's so many concerns in terms of longevity with his pitching staff between Sevy, Hauser, Quintana. You know, we do have some age problems. Injuries have already popped up in terms of like Peterson, McGill, and Kodai Senga. So having Bunto really come up and be as effective as he's been through, I believe, the 1 or 2 starts, I really enjoyed watching that Royals start. I just think it's impressive. I think watching Jose Bunto, a guy that the Mets have brought up through their system, really show that we're finally having a little bit of success with our pitching prospects for the first time in really a long time since since we originally built up that crazy rotation with Steven Matz, Syndergaard, Harvey, DeGrom. I mean, that was an awesome staff, but it's completely gone. So I'm glad that we're finally getting on to the next generation of Mets pitching prospects. And I'd also say on that note, don't be surprised if you see Christian Scott specifically, AAA Mets prospect right now, pitching really well early season. If we see him get a bump into the major leagues this year, him and Mike Vassell would be the two names I'd really, I'd think to see possibly come up during this year at some point to pitch. Wouldn't shock me if Joey Lucchesi came back up. I'm just hoping he stays in the minors. Now, with that being said, on the Royals series, I saw that we really hit every single game. The Mets had at least 8 hits in every game, even that loss. So something that just bounces off the page to me quite crazily, just because I feel like the Mets are not, at least in the past, have not been that organization to, especially in losses, really just rally hits and be able to be in it the entire time. It feels like normally they've rolled over in the past and just died, but this team refuses to go down without a fight. And really, in terms of Mets baseball, this is the first time since I was a little kid with, David Wright and Jose Reyes and Johan Santana, K-Rod for a couple years. This is the first time since that team that I'm really watching this team fight and battle and not be Metsy, at least as of this last week. I really wish I could say this about a season-long Mets team and be like, oh, this team is awesome. They kick ass. They play every game tooth and nail, but through this last week, they really have played every game tooth and nail, and it looks unbelievably phenomenal. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the Pirates series. Pirates series, we just swept the Pirates, guys. First sweep of the year. Gotta love to see that. Feels good after the only sweep that we had been a part of this season was the Brewers sweep of us to start the season. So it's nice to see this team get moving in the right direction. Now we're 9-8. After this last week. We were 3-6 last week. We're 9-8 now. You gotta love to see that. Seeing the boys really get the job done. Now I watched a little bit more of this Pirates series, and I'll definitely say that we really did battle back in a bunch of innings. I know the first game we went down 3, and then we get up to hit in the next half inning, and we just battle back and score 3 runs, make it a 0-0 game again. Even today, we saw them score a run. Mets come back and Marte hits a 2-run bomb. So it's things like that. We're seeing the Mets respond to runs. They're not staying content and complacent. I think that's a huge thing. The small ball game has definitely been working. We really saw that exemplified against the Pirates. I like to see that the small ball game is moving and a grooving. That really means a lot to me. It's always been a very big thing in Mets baseball. But for it to not only be really just exemplified now, but, the Mets have felt kind of directionless. I'm glad they're back in the small ball game. They got Pete, who's obviously going to hit you a couple home runs. And then really the rest of the lineup has just been able to kind of help out and get the job done. In terms of home runs, we could definitely use some more power. We only got 3 home runs out of Marte, who would be our number 2 guy. Okay, actually, I read that wrong. Apologies. I was looking at... Oh, nope, I read that right. I was looking at doubles. Okay. So between, Nimmo and Marte, they both have 2 home runs. Outside of that, Pete has 6. Everyone's been playing really well. Like, we're getting home runs from this guy, that guy. It's never a gajillion home runs in one game. We got 1 home run from Beatty. I know Harrison Bader hit a freaking shot first pitch today against the Pirates. That was an awesome hit. Alvarez has 1. McNeil has 1. I mean, I just want to see these, maybe we see the power numbers slowly start to creep up as the season goes, as JD Martinez, finally enters the lineup. I think that'll definitely help, but I'm not bothered by the power numbers not being there just because the Mets have been hitting the ball so well. It doesn't feel like their power numbers aren't there just because of the way they've been playing, and really at the effectiveness they've been playing. It really makes it even hard to notice those home runs just haven't been present. Now, the last thing I'll say is that I think specifically this might be Game 2. It's either Game 2 or Game 1. The bullpen had a great outing. The bullpen for the Mets has been absolutely lights out. Between Smith, Raley, Ottavino, and Diaz, they are absolutely... Actually, you know what? And let me throw Jorge Lopez in there, too. Jorge Lopez offseason pickup, baby. That rotation, that 5-man right there, has been unbelievably electric and lights out. I don't even think Raley's let up a hit so far this season. Knock on wood, folks. Hope you can hear that. So, that's definitely awesome. That means a lot to me. And I really hope we can keep that up and going. It's just really going to come down to starters. So with that being said, it's actually kind of perfect. I'll roll it into the overall points I have for this past week. Now, the starting rotation, they've been holding it down. We saw Sevy have a good outing today. But I would argue that we're getting to the point that we might need more innings out of them, especially early season. We're seeing the Mets really dive deep into their bullpen. Very happy that we got rid of Michael Tonkin because, prior to the season, I was very not on board with that pickup in terms of relief. Glad we got rid of him. But, our starters, we really need to just make sure we can get 6 innings. We need to get 6 innings out of our starter. I know it's not optimal to have 3 relievers go every day, but we can afford that. We need to make sure that we're not using 4, 5, 6 relievers every single game because we're just going to kill our pen that way. And in all honesty, we're going to kill the effectiveness of our pen that way. And that's something I really don't want to see kind of disappear, especially with how lethal our bullpen's been. And like I said, we saw Drew Smith, Brooks Raley, Adam Ottavino, Edwin Diaz, and Jorge Lopez all just kind of explode this year. They've looked phenomenal early season, so I'm really happy about that. One more thing I'd like to add in terms of the bullpen. I'd like to give a round of applause. Everybody put down what you're doing. Give a nice little round of applause. Yeah, I see you from the sky. I know you're clapping it up for Carlos Mendoza because you know what? He's been doing an absolutely phenomenal job. I really like the way he's been able to manage the bullpen. I know things have been a little weird with the early season. Will they, won't they bring up JD Martinez? When are we going to see him finally get to play? But in terms of the lineup, he's done a solid job with crafting a fine lineup. I really think he's starting to iron that out, especially within this past week. And then, bullpen management has been unbelievably phenomenal. I've been very happy so far with the bullpen management. There might have been one mistake games ago, which I'm not going to crucify the guy for. It's not even that, it might have cost us the game, but in terms of doing what he needed to do, I'm not bothered by the decisions that he's made. So in all honesty, I'm very happy with the job Carlos Mendoza's done almost 20 games into the season. Now let's see what other notes I have. I got the kids, man. The kids are playing well. We've seen Bunto play well, Beatty play well, Alvarez play well. We've seen all 3 guys, obviously I would say Alvarez more so than the other 2 is still kind of looked young at some points, but he's doing a lot of stuff between catching and, just being a phenomenal batter. So he's got to play the best of both worlds there. I'm not totally bothered that he's not, the most complete prospect yet. But those 3 guys have played great so far. I'm really, really happy with the young guy play out of this team. And I'm just excited to see what else happens there. Now, in terms of that, I'd like to say, one other thing I kind of hit on before is that the whole lineup feels to be hitting. When one guy isn't hitting, the rest of them are. And really, that's just been the case with Francisco Lindor. He's the only one that really hasn't been hitting consistently. Everybody else has been hitting. I mean, there's a game that Pete's not going to hit and McNeil's not going to hit, then freaking Marte, Bader, and Nimmo are going to hit. Maybe there's a game Marte and Nimmo don't hit. We're going to see Beatty and Alvarez hit. Maybe we get something out of Pete. Like, it's been awesome. That's the one thing that we haven't had in this lineup in a long time. It's felt like we had it last year, but clearly we didn't. It's just the ability to make every single at-bat a tough at-bat. And I really think the Mets have been able to do that so far, especially with this last week. They've really made every at-bat a tough at-bat for every pitcher. And that's something I can greatly appreciate. Now, with that being said, guys, it's kind of all I have for you on that note. I'm glad to talk some Mets baseball. Glad we just finished up the Mets series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, I'm going to get a quick check, see who the Mets are playing upcoming. I believe it's the Giants. Oh, it's the not San Francisco 49ers. It's the Dodgers. So we're going to have a very exciting series coming up in LA. We're going to play the Dodgers, then the Giants. 2 very fun and difficult series. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Mets handle this, especially in terms of, their bullpen with what they've needed to do in terms of, really using it and kind of drawing out that bullpen to great lengths already. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see what happens. I like that we're above 500, baby. Very, very excited. And yeah, I'm going to be excited to watch the Mets some more. We got a lot of season to go. So with that being said, don't be afraid to comment, like, subscribe. I got on Instagram over at the Idiots Podcast Network. Don't be afraid to check that out. I pretty much post anytime I'm posting something on here, or maybe I want to bet, and I'm going to throw a bet out there and go, hey, maybe you guys want to ride this. I got some locks going on. So, you never know. Now, with that being said, guys, I really do appreciate you coming out, listening, spending time with me. It means a lot. And stay idiotic.